Castlevania Dracula X was released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo by Konami. Dracula X is a re-released version of Castlevania Rondo of Blood on the PC Engine, and it followed the success of Super Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo. Dracula X begins with a group of townsfolk reviving Dracula. Dracula wants revenge against the game's protagonist, Richter Belmont, and captures Richter's girlfriend Annette and her sister Maria, hoping to lure Richter into his castle. The game begins with Richter leaving the burning town and fighting hordes of enemies as he attempts to save his loved ones and defeat Dracula. The gameplay is similar to other classic Castlevania games. You move left to right and kill everything in the way with your whip and other special weapons. The game has branching paths, but you'll probably stumble upon them by accident rather than by choice. These paths are optional, but are required to save Annette and Maria, and even present the player with different bosses. Dracula X has all the classic horror monsters: zombies, skeletons, and bats. Oh golly, are there bats. Small bats, big bats, bats made of other bats? It's bats all the way down. The number of bats in this game is outrageous, and they always seem to be between you and where you need to be going. The soundtrack features some of the best tracks of the entire Castlevania franchise. The bosses are diverse and seem to be just the right difficulty. They're challenging, but after a couple of tries you'll probably have them mostly figured out. I found myself beating most of them with just a sliver of health to spare. I had some trouble with the first and second level bosses though. I couldn't quite figure out when exactly I was supposed to be jumping and dodging their attacks. I was just hoping they died before me. The final battle with Dracula is nearly impossible until you figure out the axe is your best weapon, and standing on one of the platforms avoids most of his attacks. In a room full of platforms, one small mistake can mean Richter's death. The game suffers from the same rigid movement as some previous Castlevania games. You can't control Richter after starting a jump, which forces you to plan your jumps carefully or watch Richter slowly fall to his death. Richter can only whip directly in front of him. This encourages the use of special items, but makes destroying candles annoying. You need to destroy candles for hearts and other items, but most of these candles are a half jump above where you whip. I found myself performing a jump whip combo to get a lot of them. It's challenging to navigate and fight on the stairs, mostly because of how you use special weapons. You press up and B to fire your special weapon, but pressing up causes you to climb the stairs you're on, sometimes changing the direction you're facing. It can get pretty annoying at times. I never really found a use for the holy water. It reminded me of the torch in Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and I avoided it without really giving it a fair chance. I mostly stuck with the knife and cross, except for when the axe was necessary. The spear guards throughout the game are annoying, but they're a little bit easier if you bait out their spin with a whip and then follow up with a special weapon attack. There's also a trick on the clock tower level where you can skip the entire screen by jumping up the falling platforms and moving right into the next level. Rescuing Annette and Maria is entirely optional, and the ending you get depends on whether or not you rescued one or both of them. If you were like me, you watch Dracula's castle collapse with your girlfriend and her child sister trapped inside, but if you were more diligent, you saved both of them and escaped the castle with them after defeating Dracula. Overall, Dracula X is a solid game in the Castlevania series. While the game lacks some of the features from previous Castlevania games, the game more than makes up for it with addictive gameplay. You want to play through the game at least a couple of times to complete both branches. If you've never played Dracula X, you might want to give it a try. It's a Castlevania game that's easy to miss but hard to put down.